Okay, so today is the All Lines Technology Halloween party. So it lined up pretty well to choose a costume for this, with the focus being on Copilot. I'm sure you guys will see a lot of that out on LinkedIn later today. Take a look for it, give us a like or follow the site, follow our company out there so you can see it. Like Anise said, my name's Dave Siegel. I'm the CTO here at All Lines. We're also going to have Daryl Zielinski, our Microsoft Cloud team lead, present with this. I am going to take this stuff off because I can't see anything with it on, but let's go ahead and get started here. So we are entering the age of AI. From the launch event that Microsoft had back in September, their CEO Satya Nadella said that today marks the next major step in the evolution of how we interact with computing, which will fundamentally change the way we work and unlock a new wave of productivity growth. There are others at Microsoft who are senior VPs, like Jared Spataro, involved with 365, that are saying that they expect this to be really a change in age, a change in our perspective. Much like the way that a mobile phone or the internet itself changed the way that we worked, we're going to be looking back at this time, at this point of the dawn of AI and generative AI and how we use it, of how we worked with computers before and then how we work with them after. So this is making some major waves in the market. I don't know if you saw some of this news that came out recently, but obviously Amazon is a fierce competitor of Microsoft, but they signed a $1 billion deal to use the 365 productivity tools ahead of the Copilot release, which just shows how valuable these tools are and what the possibilities can be with Copilot when you see competitors entering deals like that. So this really represents an enormous opportunity for you and for your employees. 64% of people have reported that they struggle with finding the time and energy to get their work done. We're still in about a 3x spot of the amount of time that we spend in meetings and Teams meetings that have increased since before the pandemic. 70% of people say that they would delegate as much work as possible to AI if it were an option. And twice as many leaders believe that AI will provide a value by boosting productivity versus cutting headcount. So there was another conference that I was able to attend recently where there was a good perspective that was shared where somebody said, at the end of the day, I don't think that most humans can be replaced by AI, but I do believe that humans with AI can replace humans without AI. And I think that's a really interesting approach. So I'm sure most of you are familiar with ChatGPT. ChatGPT was released towards the end of last year. And if you start to look at this with generative technology and how fast it got to the masses, it took mobile phones 16 years to get to 100 million users. The internet, it took 7 years. Facebook, or the dawn of social media, took 4.5 years. But it only took 3 months to get 100 million unique users out and utilizing ChatGPT, which just shows the interest in this tech. But ChatGPT is a large language model. It can do a lot of things for you, but it's really intended for personal use. It's not a business or enterprise system. There's certainly a lot of value within the enterprise, but there are security risks as to what happens with that data, what the data is being used for, where it's being saved, et cetera. So Microsoft introduced Bing Chat Enterprise. If you look at Bing Chat Enterprise, it is the Chat GPT-like functionality, but they've brought it to the business. It does require a certain Microsoft licensing level. You do need to be on a Microsoft 365 E3, E5, or the Business Premium Edition, and you get access to this at no additional charge. It will be enabled by default soon if it hasn't been already. It doesn't take long to enable this in your tenants. But if you go out to use the Edge browser, go out to bing.com, log in with your 365 credentials, click chat up at the top, you should see the Bing Chat Enterprise experience presented to you there. So the differences with Bing Chat Enterprise is that the business data is protected. The data that you send out to Bing Chat Enterprise or the text that you send out will not leak outside of the organization. It's protected under the same controls as typical 365 data. And that data is not saved. It can't be accessed by anybody at Microsoft. They can't view the data that's being posted, and it's not safe for you to go back and look at it again, like how it is with ChatGPT. It's just not saved anywhere. And that data itself is not used to train the AI model. There's a lot of that goes on with ChatGPT. They're using the interactions to further train and enhance the large language model, but any data being used in Bing Chat Enterprise will not be shared outside of the organization. But this is still just founded in internet-based data. It is not, it's not your internal or your business data. And that's the big change with 365 Copilot. So the vision for 365 Copilot is really a digital companion that spans across all of the Microsoft productivity apps. And it's going to bring all of those Copilots that Microsoft has been talking about together into one unified experience to really become your AI assistant for work. So let's look at a quick video here to see what some of the possibilities are. So Copilot itself is going to be generally available on November 1st. It will be available for customers that have the same level licensing I talked about before. You will need to have a Microsoft 365 E3, E5 Business Premium or Business Standard license in order to add the Copilot add-on. And the Copilot data and how this works is different. It's a large language model that works just like ChatGPT. Microsoft has a deep partnership with OpenAI, who developed the language model that powers ChatGPT, but it's grounded in your data, so the Microsoft Graph data. So it has access to your calendar, your emails, your chats, documents, meetings, and more. And it can really turn your words into the most powerful productivity tool on the planet. It's going to be embedded across the Microsoft 365 apps. But we'll also have access to data through the internet, just like Bing Chat Enterprise does. So it can pull inferences from outside of the organization as well. So it's going to allow you to be more creative in Word, more analytical in Excel, more expressive in PowerPoint, and more productive in Outlook, and more collaborative in Teams. It's a fundamental change to the way that we're going to work moving forward. So some of and I should also say that it's built on Microsoft's comprehensive approach to AI. It's going to respect the security and permissions that you've set up throughout your tenant space. So if an individual doesn't have access to HR data that's out in 365 now, Copilot will not serve that data back to them. It will follow the compliance and privacy items that you've set up within your tenant and is built upon Microsoft's responsible approach to AI, which Daryl will be talking about a little bit later. But some of the things that you can do, this is when that meeting starts, Teams will notify the organizer to record it. And whenever that recording is ready, Copilot will notify you that a meeting recap is ready for viewing right inside of Outlook. And you'll be able to ask Copilot things about what was presented in that meeting or what was said in that meeting in order to give you some insight. It'll be able to help you draft a response or even create invites inside of Outlook as well. So some examples in Word, you'll be able to reference other documents. So you could say, create a 2-page project proposal based on this Word document that has the product specifications and this Excel document that has the hour estimate for professional services. And it will pull those two together and create a first draft of a project proposal. It could also use those things to help create a project schedule or an agenda for a project kickoff call. Some of the things that it could do in Excel is it can help you analyze data further. You could use Copilot to access advanced analytics and create professional visualizations inside. You could ask it to break down a spreadsheet, a sales spreadsheet by type and by channel. You could project the impact of inserting a variable. If we were to have a 10% increase in sales, what would that look like in the future? And you can model how a change to that variable would impact your gross margin over time. So a whole new way to interact with data inside of Excel without having to rely on business intelligence developers. So if we look at some of the differences here, Bing Chat does exist as just a personal type experience, an alternative to Chat GPT. When you layer on Bing Chat Enterprise, it does provide commercial data protection. This will be available in the future for an additional licensing fee for those outside of the Microsoft 365 licensing suite. If you just have Office 365, you will still be able to add this as an add-on later. But the real star of the show here is Microsoft 365 Copilot. It's going to give you the enterprise security, privacy, and compliance control. It's going to be grounded in the Microsoft 365 content and context. That's something that Daryl is going to get into in great detail as well, but that's a really important concept to understand. It's not just the content, it's not just the files, it's not just the email, but it's the context around that content. It's how you work with that content, who else is working with that content, how you work with those people, and it will be able to learn in advance by modeling things after your behavior. And again, it will be embedded across all of the Microsoft 365 apps. So I'm going to hand it over to Daryl here, and he's going to go a little bit deeper into how all this works.
Good morning, everybody. So yes, to kind of piggyback off of where Dave left off here, now that we talked about what Copilot can do, I'm going to spend some time talking about how exactly it works. So first, I want to start with the Microsoft Graph. So everything in the Microsoft 365 environment is connected by the Microsoft Graph. So this includes your users, your devices, your data, applications, all within your 365 tenant. The graph can detect and enforce security and permission controls put in place across each of these different areas. An example would be you might have SharePoint site permissions set in place that might differ from OneDrive, where you're sharing content and what you're not sharing content within your OneDrive. It might be your security controls wrapped around Microsoft Teams and Microsoft 365 groups, as well as your email. The graph doesn't have to stop with just your 365 data, though. It can extend to line of business and third-party applications by the use of APIs and graph connectors. So as this pertains to the 365 Copilot, this is how you can extend the reach of Copilot's capabilities to your LOB and third-party applications while also maintaining your security controls. Next, I wanted to talk about grounding. In the context of Copilot, grounding is a process that improves the specificity of the input prompt to help users get answers that are relevant and actionable to their specific tasks. The Copilot system translates user prompts into more relevant ones, ensuring secure and accurate responses, and this is done by accessing relevant and accurate answers from the Microsoft Graph. So in essence, grounding is a pre-processing step that enhances the quality of the prompt before it's being processed by the AI model. For security and permissions, we already touched briefly how Copilot will honor your security and permissions within your organization in your 365 tenant, but we'll expand on this a little bit further in the coming slides. I do wish to highlight that Microsoft will not use your tenant data and how you are using Copilot within your organization in relation to training the AI model. Your data remains your data, and your data never leaves your tenant. You remain in complete control on how it is being used. And next, I'm going to talk about the semantic index. Microsoft likes to compare the semantic index in relation to how the human brain works. So your brain contains a memory bank of images, words, and other types of information that is always evolving and changing. And your brain understands these connections and understands the relationships and what importance those pieces of information have with one another. That's essentially the role of the semantic index performs in relation to Copilot. I like to think of it as the connecting tissue between you and your data by creating a sophisticated map, The semantic index builds an understanding and relationship between you, your company data, and the type of questions and requests you are presenting to the Copilot. This will allow Copilot to provide you with the personalized, relevant, and actionable responses. The semantic index for Copilot consists of 5 features, which I have here on the left side of this slide, which is organizational terms, document excerpts, semantic search, more context, and frequently asked questions. These features enable you to interact with your data in new ways and help you find answers quickly. I will, instead of going line by line on what's on the left, I will talk about 2 of the 5 features, which is organizational terms and the semantic search. Organizational terms uniquely positions to autocorrect misspelled organizational jargon across the 365 without administrative involvement. And with the semantic search, it captures the meaning of your query such that semantically similar text has similar numerical values to better understand the language. By using vectors, semantic search can understand relationships between different forms of words. An example that I would like to highlight here is you might abbreviate tech, you might use technology, you might use technologies, or you might say United States versus the US, or USA, or United States of America, and natural captured synonyms to expand the amount of information that can be searched for. These improvements help semantic search understand the actual meaning of the sentences, snippets, documents, and meetings to identify and identities related to assets to your query and sample content and prepare users to interact with the 365 Copilot. So here I have a 365 Copilot map that kind of talks about the complete life cycle of a Copilot response from the beginning of the user prompt to the end of the output of what Copilot gives you. As I'm reading through these stages, note that I am going through numerically how it's represented on the map. So Copilot receives the input prompt from a user in an app like Word or PowerPoint. Copilot then pre-processes that prompt through the approach of grounding, which improves the specificity of the prompt, ensuring that you get answers that are relevant and actionable to the specific task. It does so in part by making a call to the Microsoft Graph and the semantic index and accessing your organization's data. Semantic index scopes the user's data used by Copilot to the documents and the data that are relevant and already available to the user based off of the existing access controls within your 365 tenant. This retrieval of information is referred to as the retrieval augmented generation. It allows Copilot to provide exactly the right type of information as it's inputted into the LLM. When doing so, Copilot combines this user data with other inputs such as information retrieved from knowledge base articles to improve the user's prompt. Copilot takes this response from the LLM and goes through a post-processing process. This post-processing process includes more grounding calls to the Microsoft Graph, responsible AI checks for security, compliance, and privacy reviews, and command generation. And lastly, Copilot returns a recommended response to the user and commands back to the apps where a user can review and assess the suggested responses. Copilot will process the sophisticated services to produce results that are relevant to your business because it's contextually based off your organization's data. Just note that Copilot responses will just be suggestions. You're still in control of your data and the actions. You could decide to accept, reject, or modify those recommendations being presented by Copilot. You remain in complete control of the whole experience. Now, I mentioned earlier how you can extend the reach of Copilot to various line of business and third-party applications. This can be achieved through the use of plugins and graph connectors. In doing so, you can extend skills, expand knowledge, while preserving trust. As you can see up on the screen here, I have a little bit of a write-up on each of these different areas. So extending skills, it allows you to customize and connect your applications to Copilot with plugins to increase productivity of your daily tasks and workflows. The expansion of knowledge allows the grounding calls to look just beyond a 365, but then also to those LOB and third-party applications. And in doing so, you could still honor the security controls that you have in place on those respective applications or line of business applications. This slide provides a side-by-side comparison of what plugins can provide versus the use of graph connectors. Both provide keyword search and retrieval, security, governance, and compliance boundaries, and responsible AI guardrails. With plugins, you have the ability to perform actions on the behalf of the user, and the plugins will work with Microsoft 365 Copilot, Outlook, and the Office suite. With a graph connector, you get summarization and ideation via semantics and similarities around index context, ranking and relevancy of content. Graph connectors are available for 365 Copilot, as well as workplace search, Viva Topics, Context IQ, and Feed. This diagram that I have here on the screen gives you a review of the Copilot complete stack. In the past few slides, we explained how the Copilot can be extended beyond 365 to LOB and third-party applications, but this can occur from two extension points. So you can do this at the user prompt, so you can create customized user front-end user prompts, and then you can also do this at the grounding section, where you can do API or Graph Connector plugins for the grounding process, and that's what gives it its reach to the data in those respective places. Here's a listing of some of the leading SaaS providers who are building Copilot plugins today. This list is going to continue to grow, but as you can see, there's already a lot of big names presented on the screen. When I was looking at this list, the big names that popped out to me for the plugin was Oracle, ServiceNow, Zendesk, and Box. And as you can see, there's many more there, and it will continue to grow. And on the next slide here, I list what graph connector integrations are existing with big leaders in the industry. And, the big names are like AWS and Box and, again, Oracle, Zendesk, Salesforce, but there's many more. As you can see, there's a lot of high profile providers out here that are already building these integrations, and it will continue to grow at a rapid pace. So in summary, Microsoft Copilot is grounded in your business data using combination of Microsoft Graph and the semantic index. It is comprehensive as it inherits your organization's security, compliance, and privacy policies set up currently in your 365 tenant. Copilot is built to protect your data by honoring your compliance boundaries. It's important to note that your data will not be used to help train Copilot foundation model, and your data is your data and it stays private to your organization. Copilot is heavily integrated into the Microsoft 365 apps that you're using today. If you wish to integrate Microsoft 365 Copilot directly into the application versions of Office, you need to be using Microsoft 365 Apps for Enterprise or Apps for Business. And you need to be on the current channel release. That's very important. So you need to be on those two versions of Office, one or the other, and you need to be on the current channel release. When using Copilot, your users are always in control, so they can decide what to use, what to modify, what to discard from response from the Copilot. It's important to think of Copilot as an AI-driven personal assistant, not a full automation. Copilot will continue to evolve as both the service offering mature and how Copilot learns how you interact with the service. So right now I'm going to pass it over to Dave, and he's going to talk to you about Microsoft 365 Chat.
All right, so the 365 Chat is what Microsoft is billing as their hero experience of 365 Copilot. So everything that we talked about so far was how this was going to be embedded across all of the applications inside of Microsoft 365, Word, Outlook, PowerPoint, Excel, etc. But they are releasing a 365 Chat, which is going to be a new web-based portal where you're going to be able to interact with all of your data and send things to the different tools where it makes sense. So let's take a quick look at a video on how that is going to work too. So you can see how that type of interaction is going to be a little bit different. You're going to be able to work right from that web portal, have it summarize your email, start tasks inside of Word, send them over to Word for further editing. But when you really think about this, the more you use Copilot, the more deeply it's going to reflect some of the subtle aspects of how you work and how you interact with your teams. But it's really going to be having somebody that can attend all of your meetings, even the ones that you skip or you have to skip. It's going to read all of your emails, including the ones that you missed, and it's going to know what's in every single file that you have access to inside of your 365 tenant, and it will be able to recall all of that when you ask for it at the speed of light. That's going to be freeing you to work on what's most important and most meaningful, and only the things that you can really do. Passing it back to Daryl here, we're going to go a little bit deeper on security, compliance, and privacy.
Yes, thank you, Dave. So yes, we talked about the powerful capabilities of Copilot and how it works. We briefly touched about security, but I want to dive deeper into this topic by reviewing how Microsoft approaches security, compliance, and privacy within Copilot. Here's a breakdown of Microsoft's comprehensive approach to Microsoft 365 Copilot. As mentioned earlier, Copilot honors the user's permissions and the organization's security, compliance, and privacy controls set in place by the organization. The permission model can be set at a tenant-wide level, a ground-based, or a group-based, or individual users. This is just the basic concept of setting up permissions in the 365 space. This just gets honored by Copilot. And in addition, Microsoft adheres to the responsible AI model, which we'll get into on the next slide. Microsoft believes that the development and deployment of AI must be guided by the creation of an ethical framework. Microsoft has 6 core principles that should guide the work around AI. The first 4 are considered the core principles, which are fairness, reliability and safety, privacy and security, and inclusiveness, underpinned by 2 foundational principles of transparency and accountability. For fairness, this means that the AI systems should treat everybody fairly and avoid any form of discrimination. The second principle is reliability and safety. To build trust, it's also important that AI systems operate reliably, safely, and consistently under normal circumstances and in unexpected conditions. It's also crucial to develop AI systems that can protect private information and resist attacks. For the 1 billion people with disabilities around the world, AI technologies could be a game changer. Inclusive design practices can help system developers understand and address potential barriers in a product environment that could unintentionally exclude people. And for transparency, improving intelligibility requires that stakeholders comprehend how and why AI systems function so they can identify potential performance issues, safety and privacy concerns, biases, exclusionary practices, or unintended outcomes. The final principle is accountability. Microsoft believes that people who design and deploy AI systems must be held accountable for their own systems operations. Data is the fuel that powers AI technology, and you need to trust what your technology partners are doing with your data. First, your data is your data, and that means that you own and control it. Your data to choose how to leverage and how to monetize. Your data is not used to train or enrich the foundational AI models used by others without your permission. You don't have to worry about anyone outside of your organization that might be benefiting from the AI data that's being trained inside your tenant. And your data and AI models are protected at every step of the most comprehensive enterprise compliance and security controls that exist in the industry. Next, let's dive a little bit deeper in the Microsoft's responsible AI principles. As you can see, this is broken up into 4 categories: privacy, data residency and storage, compliance, and security. I'm going to focus specifically on privacy, compliance, and security because that's a hot topic whenever we're talking about Copilot and any form of AI. So first, with privacy, as mentioned earlier, it will automatically inherit your organization's security, compliance, and privacy policies within your 365 tenant. Data is managed in line with Microsoft's current commitments. The new Copilot offering does not change Microsoft's commitments and principles for data security and privacy. Copilot is integrated into 365, which adheres to all existing privacy and compliance boundaries you have set. For compliance, at GA, Copilot will fall under their product's terms and conditions. In addition, any compliance policies you build within your tenant from Microsoft Purview will be adhered by Copilot. For example, if you leverage data loss prevention policies, information barriers, sensitivity labels, or data retention policies, Copilot will honor each of these policies. It's actually a best practice for Copilot adopters to make sure you have these policies, these compliant policy areas reviewed and validated before you adopt Copilot, just to make sure that you don't have any oversharing and you have the right access controls in place. And for security, Copilot is integrated into Microsoft 365 apps and automatically inherits all your company's valuable security, compliance, and privacy policies and processes. Multi-factor authentication, compliance boundaries, privacy protections, and more make Copilot the AI solution you can trust. Copilot protects your data in multiple ways. Logical isolation of customer content within each tenant with Entra authorization and role-based access controls. Microsoft uses physical security, screening, and multi-layered encryption strategies to protect your customer content. Microsoft 365 encrypts customer content both at rest as well as in transit. The permission model within your Microsoft 365 tenant will ensure that data will not unintentionally leak between users and groups. Copilot presents only data that each individual user can access using the same underlying controls for data access used in other Microsoft 365 services. To go along with what I mentioned earlier on this slide, it's a security best practice to make sure that you have your user access controls regularly reviewed and audited. And I want to end this slide with saying that LLMs are not further trained on or learned from your tenant's data or your prompts. Copilot presents only data you can access using the same technology that Microsoft has been using for years to secure your customer data. Now, let's spend some time talking about licensing and technology readiness. To get started, you should break down your approach to adopting Copilot into 4 key areas. Define your business requirements so you can define how you want to measure your return of investment. Then look into your AI licensing for Microsoft 365, as well as the Copilot licensing on top of it. Then you want to prepare your technology requirements. So as I mentioned in the last slide, you want to make sure that your access controls are in place, that your information barriers and any compliances that you need to adhere to, all those mechanisms are working as intended. So then whenever you roll out Copilot, you know that everything is only presented to the user that they should have access to. And then lastly, you want to prepare your users. You want to create buzz. You want to send out announcements. You want to give them FAQ and training materials on how to best capitalize on the capabilities that come with Copilot. And then you want to be able to measure that success. As people use Copilot, you want to be able to look at data to see how exactly it's being leveraged in your organization or not being used. So then you can respond with more targeted training campaigns and user adoption campaigns. On this slide here, I want to talk about the prerequisites for the technology. So all organizations, they either need to be on Microsoft 365 E3 or E5 or Microsoft Business Standard or Business Premium. You need to be adopted into the 365 space. Here on the slide, I have it stating that your users need to be in Azure Active Directory, which was recently rebranded to Microsoft Entra ID. You need to be leveraging OneDrive for Copilot to be able to have that reach. You're going to need to deploy Microsoft 365 apps for enterprise or apps for business if you wish to have Copilot directly integrated with those applications on your endpoints. And as I mentioned earlier, you need to make sure that you're on the current channel release for updates for both of those product suites. Outlook is going through a little bit of a redesign as well. So there is a preview version of Outlook that they are saying that you will need to use with Copilot. So by the time this goes live, you'll need to adopt that. And then also with Teams, you need to make sure that you have the latest and greatest, Teams desktop client, which will integrate with Copilot. Now, the next slide here, I'm going to talk about some additional best practices that Microsoft is announcing to help leverage adoption and have success with their Copilot journey. Microsoft recommends the 4 phases for adoption, and the first being assembling your team, define strategies and scenarios, so basically your business needs, your use cases within your organization. Then you want to do a assessment readiness. So take the information gathered from the team you assembled, your different stakeholders, the strategies and scenarios that you wish to incorporate Copilot, and conduct a readiness assessment that checks both the technical and business standpoints of the adoption. Then you want to build your rollout plan and adoption strategy. You want to define early adopters. You want to define any Copilot champions or Copilot lead adopters. If you are not looking to fully invest in the Copilot right out the gate, a strong adoption plan can help you identify where to best invest Copilot right out from the gate and how to gauge your return of investment. So basically a way to collect data and feedback to see the ROI so then you can justify further expansion. You want to onboard your employees and monitor the adoption of the Copilot utilization. So you want to prepare your staff, start generating, again, the buzz and the excitement around it, guide them through Copilot usage best practices. And once deployed, you want to analyze that Copilot data on a regular basis. I will note that this is also important to establish routine identity and data governance practices, as well as Copilot utilization routine assessments. Because this is not just you set it up and you forget it. You want to make sure that you're routinely monitoring your identities, your access controls, your information barriers and compliance guardrails that you have set in place. All those different pieces need to be part of a routine practice to make sure that you're adopting a least privileged access approach to Copilot so you don't have any fears of oversharing. Next, I want to talk a little bit how All Lines is in a position to help you during your Copilot journey. So here on the slide, at the top, I talk about how we are an MSP, so we're a managed service provider that extends to the Microsoft 365 solution stack as well as the Azure. We are also an indirect reseller of Microsoft 365 and Azure licensing, which includes Copilot. We are offering a free readiness review. So Anise will be providing a link to a form that you can request a free readiness review to make sure that your organization is in a position to invest into Copilot. In addition to that, we are offering a managed service delivery of Microsoft 365 Copilot adoption and consultation. This adoption will incorporate Microsoft's adoption for success best practices, as I discussed earlier. We also have a dedicated team of Microsoft Cloud solution experts. If you find you need to tune your security and compliance approach for your organization or further adopt your usage of 365 services in preparation to your Copilot adoption, we have the team here that can help you. And we also have Microsoft 365 user adoption and training services as well. And lastly, we have a dedicated team of Microsoft certified developers that can help you on your journey to extend the reach of Copilot beyond just your Microsoft services to your LOB and third-party applications. Next, I'm going to hand it over to Dave.
All right, so the Microsoft 365 Copilot license is going to be $30 per user per month in the commercial space. Again, that is an add-on to the Microsoft 365 E3, E5 Business Premium or Business Standard licensing, and it will be generally available on November 1st. We've received a lot of questions in the chat about the education space, about the A3 and A5 licensing. Copilot is going to be available for those licenses as well. Right now, we don't have specific details if that is going to be available on November 1st. like it is in the commercial space. And then we also do not have details on what the pricing is going to look like for that licensing right now. There were some similar questions around the GCC and GCC high level licensing. There have been some announcements that it will work with those G3 and G5 as well, but that's even a little bit more vague than the EDU space around what the timelines are going to look like, or what the price will be, as it's different for those being in different data centers, meeting different compliances, et cetera. So those of you that use those licenses are well aware of that. Oh, I didn't take control. There we go. So some of the ways that you can start today, like we said at the very beginning of this, you can start by using Bing Chat Enterprise today. It should be available if you have this level of licensing. If you got and check, it may be enabled already for your space. If not, it just takes 30 minutes to an hour to enable this inside of the admin tools for your tenant, which we would be able to help you with. And you can do all sorts of things with Bing Chat Enterprise, the same that you could with ChatGPT. You can have it create job descriptions. You can have it write code and scripts for you. You can use it just as a basic internet inquiry around, instead of using typical Bing search or Google search. It's if you just have questions or want to find content, the way that it presents that data back to you, it's a lot faster and pulls from multiple sites. So you can start using that today. And like Daryl said, we are offering a free Microsoft Copilot readiness review with one of our Microsoft specialists. That's something that Denise just posted a link in the chat to for a form. If you'd like to get that scheduled, we'll be able to spend some time, look at your 365 environment, and make recommendations on what you need to do in order to be really ready to roll this out to your employees, the other people inside of your organization. So we tried to keep up as much as possible on the questions. We'll go back and look at those. If anybody has any further questions, you can feel free to reach out to us direct. We do plan to get this recording of this webinar out to everybody. So if you registered, or if other people in your organization registered but weren't able to attend, we will be sending this out. And that is all. Thank you for attending. Like I said at the beginning, I am late for the Halloween party. So we'll see everybody later.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody.
Have a great day. Thanks.